M3GAN, M3GAN, Killer Doll, directed by Jose Prendes, and this is an asylum movie. Prendes has actually directed a number of mockbusters for the asylum, and this is one clearly for the new M3GAN movie in 2025, although it plays a little bit more like The Boy in some ways. So the story focuses on these two female friends, and both of whom have had a little bit of a rough life. Our kind of main character, Astrid, she's lost her mother in a car accident. She was actually injured in the same accident and has permanently damaged her legs. She kind of walks with a bit of a limp and has to use a cane. And she has a friend called Darcy, whose mother also died when she was young, but this time her father is, you know, abusive, and she's somewhat of a social pariah. These two have kind of ended up drifting apart, but Darcy has decided that she's actually in love with Astrid and kind of wants to tell her, and you know, hopefully they are going to kind of get together, and this kind of ends up becoming public knowledge amongst her kind of Astrid's friendship group, and Darcy is then mocked, and she ends up committing suicide. But not before she's given Astrid a life-size doll for her birthday, and this kind of doll ends up being a little more animated than one might expect, and kind of going on a bit of a killing spree. What'll happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So if you aren't aware, the Asylum is an American production company that tends to make low-budget mockbusters a lot of time. They do the odd original movie here and there. A lot of the time they ape movies that are coming out in kind of mainstream cinema and stuff. And this one is no exception. Can we say positive things about this movie? Let's go. Okay. There are a few. I suspect, if I'm honest, it will generally be not enough for most people. But there are some things here that I did quite like. I think the thing maybe not many people will kind of even say is the depiction of fathers here. Now, I found this quite interesting because we have two girls who have had a similar upbringing in a way, or at least in part. Both their mothers have died when they were young, and they were left with their fathers. And our main character, Astrid, played by Michael Paré, is clearly very sort of a loving father, has a great relationship with his daughter. They are quite open and honest and things like that, and you know, he seems genuinely interested in her life, whilst the other girl, Darcy, her father is controlling and abusive. And this is the main thing what separates these two young women, and as such Darcy's mental state is spiralling out of control, and you know, this could well lead to a number of dark places. So I found that sort of dichotomy between these two different set of circumstances, both involving a single father, and how the actions of said father have clearly impacted, you know, the lives of their respective daughters. I mean, again, it's not much of the movie, to be honest. The abusive father isn't on screen for long, let me just say. But nonetheless, I actually found that an interesting little kind of like nugget here, and you know, it's not something that it is dwelled upon, to be honest, but it's obviously, to me, was quite clear that was the defining moment between these kind of two girls' lives, really, their relationship with their father and how the father ultimately treats them, and this is the thing that separates them. So I actually found that reasonably interesting. I will say, I didn't think the acting was all that bad in this movie. Now, some of the line delivery, the actual dialogue is a little clunky. I think the actors do the best job they can with it. Now, we're talking an asylum film here, you know, a lower budget B movie at the end of the day. I'm not saying this is going to be like, you're going to see these guys on any award shows, But for the subject matter that we're dealing with, I didn't think the acting was too bad, because it is a little bit about kind of the mental health and people's relationships and how they might differ and how they're kind of different with other people. I actually didn't think the acting was bad at all, to be fair, for this kind of level of movie. I think the characters came across as somewhat sincere, and the actors did a good job with the material that they're given, and obviously probably the quick shoot that it was. Like I say, I think the acting here was fine for this kind of level of movie. The film does have a kind of couple of twists, a couple of kind of misdirects in the film, and it's reasonably gory in places, not massively so, but there is a couple of practical kind of gore shoots, and they have used things like practical blood and rather than kind of CGI blood for the most part, which I appreciate, and it obviously looks a hell of a lot better. And there's also a relatively high body count here. So, you know, a lot of this happens in the third act. You'll have to kind of really wait to the third act before much happens, to be honest. But once we kind of get there, it gets surprisingly bloody, I have to say. And, you know, I think the movie in its concept, in its synopsis, has some reasonable ideas, I think. And the movie often goes for the lowest common denominator, to be honest with you. But there are some interesting ideas in this kind of story pitch, so to speak. The execution, you know, like I said, it tends to go for schlock more so than not. But there's one or two ideas here that I did kind of think was quite fun. Okay, now let's talk about what doesn't work. The most disappointing thing with this movie, I would say, is the actual doll of M3GAN itself. It looks rubbish. I mean, it just looks like a mannequin that's been quickly kind of knocked together, and it really doesn't look particularly sort of quality, if I'm honest. And the fact that it's a human-sized doll clearly means obviously it's just going to be someone in a kind of costume and a mask and a wig, and that's going to be it. So it's not like it's a kind of like, you know, M3GAN size or sort of Chucky size kind of doll or anything like that. It is just a regular human-sized doll, and you know, it's a pretty shoddy prop, to be honest. And obviously when it's a costume, it just doesn't look very good. And why would anyone keep this thing? It was just like, it just seemed a little on the hokey side. And then as the film enters its third act, as I said, this is where it gets its most violent, and this is where we get some reveals here. I don't know if I'm completely buying it. I don't want to say what it is, so I won't go into detail about why I don't think it really works, but there's logic issues here, some physics issues here, that just seem to be, you know, just kind of brushed under the carpet. There's plenty of occasions here where people get killed inside the home of Astrid and her father, but there's not a drop of blood anywhere or things like this. We see Darcy's suicide. She ends up kind of getting burnt to death, and let me just say the police must be pretty much skipping out early if they've based on their investigation. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, it's not trying to be like a film which is, you know, crossing the T's and dotting the I's in regards to its plot points here. It's just like, that's kind of more or less enough to sort of, you know, and that's all we'll say. We'll kind of move on. So don't be expecting a well thought out script here, if I'm honest. The killer doll, as I say, aesthetically doesn't look very good. I think when all is revealed, there'll be some questions as to why and how, and you know, I think it misses some parts, and it just feels quite cheap. The way this movie plays out, it's like, okay, what's the cheapest way we can kind of get around things? Ultimately, I think this film, it will be unsatisfying for some, and it's actually some of the little elements here that I kind of liked. you know, it sort of touches on kind of mental health and the relationship between patient and you know, and doctor and things, and what a doctor might do, things like this, and interpersonal relationships, and obviously, as I said, the interesting commentary on fatherhood. But these are things I don't think people are going to be caring that much about. People will want to kill a doll movie, really. And that's the weakest part of this movie. And ultimately, and that's what the bulk of the running time is. There's plenty of like dippy characters. Like I said, I don't think the acting is too bad, but the characters aren't particularly written exactly to be fully formed, realistic characters. The actors do the best they can. It's a 3 out of 10 for me. It's a little bit of a miss. I think I've seen more interesting mockbusters, even from Jose Paredes, who directed this one. So yeah, it's not a slam dunk, this one, by any means. Have you seen it? Would you see it? Please let me know your thoughts, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.